Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Appeal Court affirms Ademola Adeleke as Osun Governor, dismissing tribunal judgment. Court grants Peter Obi permission to challenge Bola Tinubu's victory. APC accuses INEC and security agencies of conniving with Governor Nyesom Wike to rig the March 18th election. And on the foreign scene, King Charles III's state visit to France postponed after request by President Emmanuel Macron. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Tunde Ido. We begin in Osun State, where 56 days after the Osun governorship election, petition tribunal sitting in Osogbo sacked Governor Ademola Adeleke as duly elected governor. The appeal court sitting in Abuja has reversed that judgment, affirming Governor Adeleke as winner of the July 16, 2022 election. This comes after Governor Adeleke filed a 31-ground appeal on the 9th of February, praying the appellate court to set aside the ruling of the lower court and declare him winner of last year's election. This report by Emmanuel Ujuadugele details today's ruling of the appellate court.
Petition Tribunal had on January 27, 2023 obtained Governor Ademola Adeleke's victory and affirmed Gboyega Oyetola of the All Progressives Congress as the authentic winner of the poll. In its majority verdict, the Justice Tetsi Kume-led tribunal avoided Governor Adeleke's victory and declared Mr. Oyetola the winner of the poll, premising its decision on grounds of overvoting and electoral infractions. However, a minority judgment by Justice B. Ogbuli affirmed Governor Adeleke as winner of that poll, and displeased by this ruling of the tribunal, Governor Adeleke and his party, the People's Democratic Party (PDP), headed for the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja heard the appeal on March 13th and reserved its judgment, but it has now set aside the tribunal judgment. The appellate court, in a unanimous decision by a 3-member panel of justices led by Justice Mohammed Shuaibu, held that the appeal lodged by Governor Adeleke to challenge his sack by the petition tribunal was meritorious and allowed to stand. During the ruling, the justices resolved that the preponderance of proof that there was overvoting in the elections rested on the petitioner. On the first issue as to the validity of the lead judgment co-signed by Member 2, the appellate court panel held that the signature of the second judge appended on the tribunal's judgment document meant she consented to the lead judgment, adding that no law mandates the judge to write a separate opinion. On the second issue of jurisdiction, the appellate court held that although the law allows the tribunal to suspend decisions on preliminary objections until the end of the matter, the Osun Governorship Tribunal failed to show in writing that it considered Governor Adeleke's preliminary objection in its merit. Issue 3 bordered on certified true copies of documents, but the appeal court held that the documents paid for and certified for the use of the respondent, Mr. Oyetola, and the APC were validly obtained. On issue 4, the Court of Appeal faulted the tribunal for rejecting some of Governor Adeleke's exhibits, which consist of his certificates on the grounds of forgery, holding that the issue of forgery has been resolved and dismissed by a superior court. They said the tribunal is obliged to take cognizance of the judgment that exonerated him of forgery. On issues 5 and 7, which borders on overvoting, the appeal court held that the respondents failed to prove their allegation of overvoting. It held that the tribunal was wrong to have relied only on the table showing overvoting provided by Mr. Oyetola and the APC, without giving due consideration to INEC's voter register. It faulted Mr. Oyetola and APC for relying only on the data from the back-end server, failing to look at the voters register, which forms the foundation of the whole electoral process, and as such cannot strengthen their allegations of overvoting. The respondents, according to the appeal court, failed to tender the beavers machines or call witnesses and experts to testify on overvoting, noting that the expert witness called by the respondent is a member of the APC and the person interested in the case. On the issue of bias, the court held that although the tribunal's comment on the appellant Governor Adeleke's proclivity for dancing and particularly the Buga song is unwarranted and condemnable, it does not in any way prove bias against the appellant. The court also awarded the sum of 500,000 naira against the APC and its candidate Gboyega Oyetola. Further legal options are available to Mr. Oyetola and the APC. It remains to be seen if this option will be explored. Counsel to the APC, Abiodun Layonu, says his party will study the judgment and announce its next line of action.
Well, there are so many issues involved in this appeal. Some of the issues we won, a bit more of the issues we lost. Overall, we lost the appeal. But it's so interesting that we believe that as soon as we collect the various judgments, which are all more or less the same, by Monday we would study the judgment and then make our decision. But it's most likely because of the very interesting nature of the decisions made that the matter will not end here.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the PDP in Osun State, Dr. Adekunle Akindele, commended the judiciary for what he says is a right judgment.
The judgment today is in conformity with the expectation of our people. It has really confirmed that our governor, His Excellency Governor Ademola Adeleke, actually and really won the July 16 election.
Counsel to INEC Henry Akunebu says the outcome of today's proceedings is both scholarly and in-depth.
Of course, the judgment today manifests not only justice, but the scholastic content of the judgment is certainly going to be edifying, because certainly the legal perfection is richer for the judgment delivered today. The innovative and revolutionary provisions of the Electoral Act have received judicial adjudication today by the judgment as delivered today.
PDP counsel Nathaniel Oke also said the judgment given by the Court of Appeal was a step in the right direction.
Judgment has been delivered in respect of all the appeals before this Court of Appeal this afternoon. They allowed all the appeals filed by the governor-elect Senator Ademola Adeleke. He won his appeal. The PDP as a political party won his appeal. INEC as an appellant before this Court of Appeal won the appeal. So the totality of the appeal presented before the Court of Appeal herein have succeeded, and the court has affirmed that Senator Ademola Adeleke remains the governor of Osun State.
Emmanuel Ujadigele, Western Spring Television News.
The Court of Appeal has granted permission to Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi to serve his petition challenging the February 25th presidential election on Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress APC. Mr. Obi is challenging the victory of Tinubu, who was declared the president-elect by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). The Labour Party flag bearers Cancel Ikechukwu Eziechukwu, in an ex parte application, had asked the appellate court to grant Obi and the Labour Party leave to serve the petition on Tinubu and the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima through substituted means. Eziechukwu argued that it has been necessary to serve the court filing through substituted means on Tinubu and Shettima owing to heightened security protection around the president-elect and vice president-elect. The lawyer urged the court to permit Obi to serve the court documents on Tinubu and Shettima through the office of the legal advisor of the APC. Ruling on the application, a three-member panel of the Court of Appeal, Abuja, led by Haruna Samani, granted Obi's request. Governor of Adamawa State and candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in March 18th governorship election in the state, Amadu Fintiri, has accused the state resident electoral commissioner of misleading the returning officer to declare the election inconclusive. It will be recalled that INEC had on Monday declared the March 18th governorship elections in Adamawa inconclusive. Mr. Fintiri said with the margin of votes, he was leading his closest opponent, Senator Aishatu Dahiru, famously known as Binani of the All Progressive Congress APC. He also added that the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC ought to have declared him the winner of the election. Pintiri, however, said he is not against a rerun as long as it is conducted within the provisions of the law. He expressed confidence that he will still emerge winner after the rerun. APGA leadership The Supreme Court today affirmed Edozie Njoku as the national chairman of the All Progressive Grand Alliance APGA. The Apex Court, in a unanimous decision by a 5-man panel of justices, admitted that it had, in a judgment it delivered in 2021, erroneously wrote the name of Chief Victor Oye as chairman of the party. In the lead ruling that was delivered by Justice Mohammed Lawal, the court said it has the powers to review its judgment and correct such accidental error when it is brought to its attention. It therefore issued an order expunging the aspect of the judgment where Oye's name was reflected as the national chairman of the party. Governor Ademola Adeleke has expressed happiness following the ruling of the appeal court, which affirmed his victory in the July 16, 2022 gubernatorial election in Osun State. Olayinka Ale was in Ede, where the governor gave his first reaction to the judgment.
The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja earlier today upheld the election of the governor of Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke. Justice Mohammed Lawal Shahibu-led panel, while delivering its judgment today in Abuja, said the 2022 election petition tribunal erred in law by basing its verdict on overvoting on the table solely presented by the petitioners, stating the petitioners did not prove their cases on overvoting. In his reaction, Senator Ademola Adeleke expressed his happiness in the fair judgment, stating that he was confident because he knew that he won the July 16th gubernatorial election.
Oh, well, I just thank God. I just thank God that God has done it again. Because my people are happy, and I'm happy. And my family are happy because we promised Osun the dividend of democracy, and it's happening. That's why they're happy, today. So my first reaction is that we thank God. We thank Allah for what he has done for us.
The governor has assured the residents of Osun State of good governance and quality representation, like he has been doing since his assumption in office.
And then, of course, developing communities, and so forth and so on. And we still have a lot of park for them. We still have a lot in stock for them to make sure that they enjoy the dividends of democracy.
The matriarch of the Adeleke family, Chief Mrs. Modupe Adeleke's son, similarly thanked the people of Osun for their support to the governor, while also urging them not to relent.
I want to use this medium to thank all the people of Osun State for their love, for standing by the Executive Governor of Osun State, His Excellency Senator Ademola Jackson Nurudeen Adeleke. They have supported him since July 16. They voted enormously for him, and they stood by him since July 16 till date. I want to thank them so much for the love they have for him, and I want to also thank God Almighty, and I also thank the judiciary for bringing out the truth in the Court of Appeal today.
What's your advice to our people?
To the people of Osun State. Well, my advice to the people of Osun State is that they should continue to love him, to love their governor, and I want to assure them that their governor loves them so much, and he will continue to do all he promised them during his campaign. All what he promised that he will do, people can see that he has started doing it, even in his 3 months.
Secretary to the state government, Alhaji Teslim Igbalayi, stated that the PDP and the governor had a watertight case.
We don't have much reaction than to thank Almighty Allah for giving us this victory. It's not by our power, it's not by our might, it's not by our money, it's not by our wisdom, but it's just the grace of God we are enjoying for this victory. So, by by and large, we thank Almighty Allah for giving us this victory. The proverb in Yoruba that the voice of people is the voice of God. So the God has spoken already since last year. Now the judiciary has, the appeal court has spoken. So we thank Almighty Allah for giving us this victory.
Following the judgment, party stalwarts and faithful as well as well-wishers have been trooping into the governor's residence to congratulate him. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
In the meantime, immediate past governor of Osun State, Adegboyega Oyetola, has appealed to members and supporters of the All Progressive Congress to remain calm and not be discouraged over the outcome of today's appeal, saying his abiding faith in God to reclaim his mandate remains undoubted. Reacting to the appeal court judgment, which overturned the decision of the tribunal, Mr. Oyetola, in a statement by his media aide Ismail Omipidon, noted that his belief in the judiciary also remains unshaken. Oyetola added that he believes there is a potential ground to approach the Supreme Court. And in Enugu State, the All Progressive Grand Alliance APGA in Enugu State and its governorship candidate Frank Nweke has condemned the outcome of recently concluded gubernatorial election regarding it as an assault on democracy. In a statement, it said the PDP deployed violence, intimidation, and divisive sentiments against the people of Enugu State during campaign and election proper. In another development, the Action Alliance in Enugu State today have rejected the outcome of the recently concluded governorship election in the state. This was disclosed in a statement today by the party's chairman, Ogbonna Okafor. It should be recalled that Barrister Peter Mba of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) was declared winner of the election, defeating Chijioke Edioga of the Labour Party with a margin of 3,000 votes. He said the party was left with no other option than to challenge the outcome of the polls in the governorship election petitions tribunal. In Zamfara State, Governor Bello Matawalle has conceded defeat in the March 18th governorship election and has sought forgiveness from people who might have felt very disappointed at the loss. The governor, in a statement today, also urged the citizens to pray and support the incoming administration of Dauda Lawal to succeed. In an audio message to the people of the state, as confirmed by the Chief Press Secretary to the governor, Jamilu Magaji, Mr. Matawalle said he did his best in ensuring lasting peace in the state and will continue until the end of his tenure. According to the governor, part of his efforts to restore peace in Zamfara include the initiation of peace dialogue with bandits to lay down arms and tow the path of peace. He added that despite the fact that a good number of the bandits repented, there is nothing more challenging than insecurity bedeviling the state. The All Progressive Congress in Rivers State has accused the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and security agencies of conniving with Governor Nyesom Wike to rig the March 18th governorship and State House of Assembly election in the state. The party noted that last Saturday's governorship election and State Assembly election was characterized by widespread violence which led to loss of lives. APC spokesman in Rivers State, Darlington Nwaju, at a press briefing in Port Harcourt, alleged that 4 APC members were killed in Ahoda West local government area, with 2 persons still missing. Nwaju wondered why the police is yet to commission an investigation into all the killings that took place in the state with a view to bringing perpetrators to book. The APC spokesman maintained that the party's governorship candidate Tonye Cole will soon approach the court to claim his stolen mandate. You're watching news at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come. Rearrangement of former registrar of JAMB, Dibu Odenride, stalled in court. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
This iconic African presents the narrative of a man destined to exert an imperishable global influence in Western education. His was a story of a freeborn, captured and sold into slavery. He was born in Oshogun, a native Yoruba village near Iseyin in Okeogun axis of southwest Nigeria. Samuel Ajayi Crowther was the foundation student of Fora Bay College, Sierra Leone, the foremost university where the pioneer set of native Africans were educated. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's greatest contribution to humanity was his translation of the Holy Bible into the Yoruba language. The man who authored the Yoruba dictionary was also credited with the translation of English classic hymns into Yoruba and the Ekwere languages. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's private residence in Badagry, incidentally the first story building in Nigeria, is an Akaba museum dedicated to the memory of Africa's first bishop. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ajayi Crowther as a watershed character in history. Badamasi Adegoke Adelabu was a prominent figure in Ibadan politics and Western region before Nigeria's independence. He was a key founder of the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, a political party that held lofty the torch of liberty for the two West African countries. He carved a niche for himself as a wordsmith and a creative speaker. The nickname Kwenkele was a natively corrupted version of Peculiar Mess, his bombastic English language style often used to score proceedings at the parliament. The author of Africa in Ebullition, a handbook of freedom for Nigerian nationalists, was Nigeria's Federal Minister of Natural Resources and Social Services between 1955 and 1956. He died in an auto crash on the 25th March 1958 at the age of 42. Western Spring Television identifies Adegoke Adelabu as a watershed character in history. James Ajibolaige was a lawyer who obtained his first degree in classics from Nigeria's premier University of Ibadan. Born September 13, 1930, the orator and the polyglot spoke impeccable English, French, Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba languages. His fine diction placed him among classical orators and public speakers like Cicero, the Roman orator. This attribute earned him the prefix Cicero of Esauke. He authored Kaduna Boy, an autobiography, Detainage Diary, Constitution, and the People, among 6 other books. Bolaige was a colorful politician, elected governor Oyo State in 1979 and appointed a federal minister in 1999. He was a pioneer founder of Afenifere, the Yoruba social, cultural, and political group. He invested his political sagacity to propel the group to the height of political leadership and decision-making in the southwest of Nigeria. Bolaige was assassinated on the 23rd December 2001. His murderers are yet to be apprehended till today. Western Spring Television identifies Bolaige as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. first television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 Naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Appeal Court affirms Ademola Adeleke as Osun Governor, dismissing tribunal judgments. Court grants Peter Obi permission to challenge Bola Tinubu's victory. APC accuses INEC and security agencies of conniving with Governor Nyesom Wike to rig the March 18th election. On the foreign scene, King Charles III state visit to France postponed after a request by President Emmanuel Macron. The All Progressive Congress Kogi State Chapter has approved the suspension of a member of the National Working Committee, Murtala Yakubu, by the executive member of Ajaka Ward 1 of the party. Yakubu, who is the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the party, was suspended by the entire executive members of APC Ajaka Ward 1, Igala Mela Udulu local government area of Kogi State in a letter dated March 20 over alleged anti-party activities, insubordination, gross misconduct, unguided statement, running parallel party structure, and encouraged factionalism in the party. Reacting to the action of the ward executives in a statement signed by the State Secretary Joshua Emmanuel, the Kogi APC leadership affirmed Yakubu's suspension, adding that he has been barred from participating in all party activities. Away from politics, the rearrangement of former registrar of the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, Dibu Ojerinde, and 10 others before a federal high court in Abuja has been stalled due to the failure of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, to produce the defendants in court. The former JAMB registrar, who is already facing trial on 5 billion naira fraud charges at the same court, was to be arraigned alongside his 4 children and fresh fraud charges. The co-defendants are Maria Mary Fumilayo, Olumide Abiodun, Adebayo, and Oluwaseun. Also included in the charges are Ojerinde's firms Doyin Ogboni Petroleum Limited, Cheng Marbles Limited, Shakpati International School Limited, Trillium Learning Center Limited, and Standout Institutes Limited. Justice Inyang Eko asked the ICPC to serve the defendants immediately and adjourn the matter to April 19th. Well-wishers have been trooping in and out of Governor Ademola Adeleke's residence in Ede today following the appeal court ruling that upheld his election. The Justice Mohammed Lawal Shuaibu-led panel, while delivering its judgment today in Abuja, said the 2022 Election Petition Tribunal erred in law by basing its verdict on overvoting on the tables solely presented by the petitioners, stating that the petitioners did not prove their cases on overvoting. Supporters of the governor and PDP stalwarts stated that they are overwhelmed because the ruling shows Governor Adeleke's mandate has come to stay.
overwhelmed today. Look at the joyous mood you met our people here. So it confirmed that the free mandate given to Senator Nuruddin Ademola Adeleke in the last July 16 election. So it has come to pass. The true testimony has been garnered today through the court judgment, the appeal court judgment that affirmed that Senator Nuruddin Ademola Adeleke Jackson is the duly elected governor of Osun State. And we want to appreciate the three judges for setting aside the tribunal judgment, which we believe that they robbed the people of Osun State. And here we are today. So we are celebrating, rejoicing, and we are praising God for giving us our mandate back.
I'm very happy. I'm very impressed because I don't know what to say, just to thank God, Sha. Glory be to God. We win.
I give glory to Almighty God that the wish of the people finally is allowed to stay. People also are happy today because they have talked, they have confirmed their talk several times. And we have to thank God that God has confirmed the stay of our Imole governor.
Is expected. The judge from the first tribunal was a ruse. Everybody knows it was a ruse, and we had expected that this one will come, and it has come by the special grace of God. It can't be faulted in any way because it can't be faulted in any way because these people that gave the judgment did it with the fear of God in them. So it's expected.
In Ondo State, youths of Uso community in our local government area took to the streets today to protest the kidnap of two residents by bandits. It was gathered that the victims were kidnapped along the Akure-Owo Expressway. The incident was said to have angered the youths of the community who staged the protest along the expressway. All efforts made by the police to placate them were not successful as the protesters blocked the busy expressway, causing traffic gridlock for several hours. Police Public Relations Officer of the Ondo Police Command, Funlayo Odulami, confirmed the kidnap of the victims and said men of the command had swung into action to ensure the victims were rescued. Residents of Road 5, Zone B area of the Hallelujah Estate in Oshogbo, the Osun State capital, have decried the presence of poultry house and pig pen by one of the residents in the area, which has caused health problems for residents over the years. The residents are calling on government agencies, especially the Osun State Waste Management Agency, to assuage the situation by evacuating the poultry from the residential area. Toby Sanusi visited the area and now reports.
Located in the developed residential part of Oshogbo, the Osun State capital, the Road 5 Zone B extraction of Hallelujah Estate is a populated area that plays host to most elderly residents and youths. Trouble started when one of the residents, known to be a former permanent secretary, Ministry of Finance in Osun State, erected a building for poultry house and pig pen right beside his residential building, causing environmental pollution. Over the years, residents of Road 5 Zone B area in Hallelujah Estate have had to grapple with the hazardous odor that comes with rearing livestock in such a developed residential area. One of the residents, who is in his 60s, Odelola Timothy, whose house has been domiciled in the area since 1993, says many of the residents had thought the former PS would evacuate his livestock from the vicinity, considering the development of the area over the years, but the owner did not seem to see in the direction of the residents.
For some years now, we have been facing a lot of problems from our neighbor that is keeping our poultry, and the odor is affecting us and affecting our heads. And we have been making a lot of efforts in order to make sure that this issue has been resolved.
The same narrative was given by another resident, Awodele Olushola, who had several physical conversations with the poultry owner on the health effects of the poultry house and pig pen on the resident, but the owner kept making failed promises to find lasting solution.
The start of the poultry and the pig combined within the same compound. And it had been an age-long thing. People had been complaining, and the owners had been posting members of the community who are complaining that they will find something to do about it. And up to now, nothing. It's a very big hell, very, very hectic. You need to be here. You see, when the terrible odor start oozing out, you won't like it. 24/7, day and night, I mean, especially during the rainy season. In fact, everywhere is enveloped, no matter how you close your door on windows. In fact, people passing by, the Okada riders, people driving their cars, whenever they start from the tail end there until they get to up there, they will close their noses and mouths. And and when you close your nose and mouth, you know how it happens. You squeeze your face as well. So, the body language is an expression of something very, very, very poisonous to human health. That's what I mean. They should encourage him to move them away. There was a time he confessed to me, he said even his children were complaining. I mean the man, the owner. He said the children too are complaining.
Even though the hazardous stench emanating from the livestock area, which occupies a large expanse of land, was conspicuously noticed by Western Spring Television news crew during a visit, many of the affected residents who perceive the owner as an influential force in the area refused to speak to our news crew over fear of intimidation by the poultry owner. Mr. Odeshola, however, corroborates the affairs by claiming that the owner has so far used his power to sabotage his fellow neighbors by not evacuating the poultry house and pig pen from the area, despite several complaints.
But we look at it that maybe because he's rich or his influence in the society, that is why he wants to use it to intimidate us, or we don't even know. And that is why, and I've been written a lot of forwarding letter to Osema and some agency. We didn't see any response. So that's why I said we should inform everybody about what is happening in our environment so that they will come to our rescue. They should come and rescue us from this odor.
However, in a brief telephone chat with the poultry owner who failed to grant an interview, stated that he was working on resolving the matter, but no specific time frame was given. Western Spring Television News took the complaint to the notice of Osun State Waste Management Agency, OMA, whose Director of Environmental Health and Sanitation, Peter Aleshinloye, says it is unlawful to keep large-scale livestock in a residential area. Mr. Aleshinloye, however, vowed that the agency will serve the poultry owner a notice to evacuate the area, having received the complaint.
The position of the law is clear. It is not allowed in a residential area, poultry, piggery, or a large scale. The law says that anything above 20 for piggery and so on is commercial. So such must be out of residential area. For birds, anything above 25 is not allowed in residential area for profitability and for safety of the people they are to control. The law is clear on that. What we do is to visit, give a notice known as abatement notice. The notice will require them to relocate to a place that is to a non-residential area, so that it will save the people from pollution. We give them specific time, like 3 months, so that the loss will be minimized. And so then, while they are planning to move, we give them some things that they will need to be applying, so that the odor and what have you will not be much. That's what we do. The law does not know that somebody is in power or not, or somebody is influential or not. The law is for everybody, whether high or low. It's irrespective of any person. Once we do our bit, we pursue the case to the Court of Justice, and the law will take its course. We'll give a notice, dispatch it to the owner, requiring him to leave within a specific period that I asked, like I've said. But in case it defaults, the notice, then we have to refer the issue to the court, presenting all that we have served, and the court will mandate whoever it is to move.
Environmental pollution is hazardous to humans' health and constitutes environmental degradation. Toby Sanusi, reporting for Western Spring Television.
On the foreign scene, King Charles III state visit to France has been postponed after a request by President Emmanuel Macron. The LC Parlys said the decision was taken jointly due to a 10th day of pensions protest next Tuesday. The trip to Paris and Bordeaux had been due to begin on Sunday, but France saw some of the worst violence yesterday since demonstrations began in January. Buckingham Palace said the delay was due to the situation in France. The UK government added that the decision had been taken with the consent of all parties after the President of France asked the British government to postpone the visit. French pension reform and a related development. The French authorities have arrested 457 people during a nationwide protest against French President Emmanuel Macron's pensions reform as the union calls for more demonstrations. Hundreds of thousands of people across the country have taken part in protests against President Macron's plan to increase the retirement age from 62 to 64. Here's a report detailing events that unfolded since the protest began on the 19th of January, 2023.
Strikes and demonstrations hit France on the 19th of January 2023, organized by people opposed to the 2023 French pension reform bill proposed by the 43rd government of the French Fifth Republic, headed by Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne. The pension reform bill seeks to increase the retirement age from 62 to 64 years. Unlike Nigeria, where citizens were happy that President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law a bill to increase the retirement age of teachers from 60 to 65 years and extend their period of service from 35 to 40 years, French workers are livid that the government would raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 years. The strikes led to widespread disruption, including garbage piling up in the streets and public transport cancellations. There have been significant police presence at the demonstration that sometimes ended with clashes with protesters, the use of tear gas, and some arrests. But these are so far not deterred the French President Emmanuel Macron, who has refused to budge on his government upping the retirement age to 64 years. The cost of pensions has partially contributed to France's national debt rising to 112% of its GDP, compared to 98% before the COVID-19 pandemic, and is one of the highest levels in the European Union. Macron had said that when he began working, there were 10 million French pensioners, and now there are 17 million. So for France to keep the system financially viable without funneling more taxpayer money into it, Macron sought to gradually raise the legal age when workers can start collecting a pension by 3 months every year until it reaches 64 years in 2030. He had also accelerated a previous change that increased the number of years that workers must pay into the system to get a full pension and abolished special pension rules that benefited workers in sectors like energy and transportation. Macron had tried so hard to convince French workers of the need for these decisions.
As I speak to you right now, do you think I enjoy doing this reform? No. Do you think I could have done the same as many others before me and sweep this under the carpet? Yes. Maybe. But there is one thing I regret. It's that we weren't able to inform of the need to undergo this reform. So yes, there aren't 100 solutions if we want the pension system to be balanced. It no longer is. And the more we wait, the more it will get worse. And so this reform is necessary. I would have preferred not to, but it's also because of a sense of responsibility.
As the moves did not go down well with trade unions, left-wing political parties had also taken advantage of the situation. The fracas had lingered and taken a new turn in March this year, when the government used Article 49 of the Constitution to force the bill through the French Parliament, sparking more protests and 2 failed no-confidence votes, which contributed to an increase in violence in protest alongside the union-organized strike action. General Secretary of the Steel Industry Federation, Stéphane Destoux, said all that French workers demand is a fair pension reform which takes into account all workers' pensions paid and the toil of their jobs. According to him, there's a lot of hard work in the steel industry and factories, making it difficult to work until 64 years. Other workers across different sectors also aired their views on the reform.
We lived through COVID. They messed us around with the lockdowns and by shutting down universities. My generation has been living with the pressure of climate change. Since I was a kid, I've thought that in 2050 the earth would be on fire. I don't have any time to lose. Now as a nation we're all thinking ahead to when we'll be retired, but my generation doesn't even know what kind of living conditions we'll have by then, just when it comes to air quality.
A poll by the Opinion Way survey group showed that 61% of French people supported the protest movement. In January alone, the Ministry of Interior counted 1.12 million demonstrators, including 80,000 in Paris. As at March 23rd, about 320 protests have been planned across the country, with the biggest demonstrations in the southern towns of Marseille, Nice, and Toulon. Meanwhile, France has one of the lowest retirement ages for an industrialized country and spends more than most countries on pensions, amounting to almost 14% of economic output. Daniel Odeyemi, Western Spring Television.
And still ahead, CBN confirms evacuation of banknotes too from its vaults to commercial banks across the country. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
The 1914 Amalgamation Treaty is synonymous to the birth of Nigeria. Frederick Lugard, a British Army captain and an outlaw who struck gold in Africa, became the instrument used by destiny to make it happen. The amalgamation of Nigeria was designed for economic reasons by the colonial administration to offset Northern Protectorate budget deficit by Southern Protectorate surplus returns. The amalgamation had ad initio created imbalance in the economic political structure of Nigeria and was responsible for the persistent hiccups and the efforts to forge a united country till today. Nigeria's amalgamation was labeled as the mistake of 1914 by native northern conservatives who neither wanted it nor contributed anything significant to his sustenance. Western Springer Television identifies with Amalgamation Treaty of 1914 as a watershed event in history.
Thank you for staying with us. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has confirmed the evacuation of banknotes from its vaults to commercial banks across the country as part of a coordinated efforts to ease the circulation of banknotes of various denominations. The CBN has also directed all commercial banks to open for operations on Saturdays and Sundays. A press statement issued by the Acting Director, Corporate Communications Department of the CBN, Issa Abdul Mumin, states that a substantial amount of money in various denominations had been received by the commercial banks for onward circulation to their respective customers. According to him, the CBN had directed all banks to load their automated teller machines as well as conduct physical operations in the banking halls through the weekend. The statement adds that the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, will personally lead teams to monitor the levels of compliance by the banks in various locations across the country. And in Asia, South Korea has said it will seek the extradition of fugitive crypto entrepreneur Kwon Do-hong following the Terraform founder's arrest and immediate slamming of fraud charges by the United States. The prosecutors made this known earlier today. Do-won has been accused of fraud over his company's dramatic collapse last year, which wiped out about $40 billion of investors' money and shook global crypto markets. The country's interior ministry said the 31-year-old was arrested at the Podgorica airport in Montenegro on a South Korean warrant. Soon after his arrest, United States charged him with 8 counts, including security fraud and wire fraud, which followed a suit by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. South Korean authorities today confirmed that Kwon had been on the wanted list over violations of the country's Capital Market Act, assuring that they will seek his extradition. And moving to the world of sports, Guinea-Bissau recorded a shock 1-0 win against the Super Eagles of Nigeria in Group A of the 2023 AFCON qualifiers in Abuja. This is the first time ever Guinea-Bissau will defeat the Eagles. Guinea-Bissau now on 7 points, usurp the Eagles as Group A leaders. The first half goal from Mama Blade sealed one of the shocks in the qualifying series. The two teams will meet again on Monday, 27th March, for the second leg. Bayern Munich have sacked manager Julian Nagelsmann after less than 2 years in charge and appointed Thomas Tuchel as his replacement until 2025. The German side have won the last 10 Bundesliga titles and sit second in the table this season, 1 point behind leaders Borussia Dortmund. They beat Paris Saint-Germain to reach the Champions League quarter-finals, where they will face Manchester City. 49-year-old Tuchel was sacked by Premier League. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. 56 days after the Osun Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal sitting in Osogbo sacked Governor Ademola Adeleke as duly elected governor, the appeal court sitting in Abuja has reversed that judgment, affirming Governor Adeleke as winner of the July 16, 2022 election. The Court of Appeal has granted permission to Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi to serve his petition challenging the February 25th presidential election on Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress APC. The All Progressive Congress in Rivers State has accused the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and security agencies of conniving with Governor Nyesom Wike to rig the March 18th governorship and State House of Assembly election in the state. On the foreign scene, King Charles III state visit to France has been postponed after a request by President Emmanuel Macron. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thank you for staying with us. I am Tunde Ido. Good evening.
Evelyn Ohiole, King Eve. How are you today?
I'm good, I'm fine. I'm a